Hello everyone, Args here. Welcome along to our second video on our series of mastering Terrafarm. Now if you haven't watched the first video already, I highly suggest you go and check that out. That covers all of the basics for how to use Terrafarm, how to get your excavator, your wheel loader and everything working so you can go through and dig holes like this, which is exactly what we did in our first video. But today we are going to take a look at the surveyor tool, which is a little bit more advanced, but is a very cool feature that was added into Terrafarm in FS22 quite late, but it is something here that is within FS25 right from the outset. So we'll go and take a dive into that. We'll have a look at the store where you buy the tool from. We'll have a look at the tool, how it all works, and then we'll do a couple of examples. So let's go and take a look. So where do you find the surveyor tool? We're going to scroll all the way down, pretty much to the bottom, and in our miscellaneous categories here, you'll see there is our PSV2 surveyor, part of the Terrafarm beta mod. So we're just going to double click on that. No many options. You can go through and customize the colors for the parts there that you can see, and then obviously for the legs as well. So if you want to do something a bit funky, do whatever you want. You can make it as crazy as you like. Now I've already bought one of these. It does cost $4,500 plus a little bit extra if you want to paint the legs, so it's not very expensive at all. Now just one other little tip here: if you're struggling to find where things are, click on the little mod icon down there and you can scroll around and find all your mods. And once again, if you know it's in Terrafarm, you can come through and find it that way. So a couple of different ways where you can find that. So now that you've bought your survey tool, let's go and have a look at what it looks like. Now I've actually set it up here. It's on the back of the Kubota, just so I can show you that it's actually strappable down on a bed. So if you wanted to put it on the back of a pickup or something like that to get to your job site, you can do that. But let's just come in and unstrap that. And then basically we can pick it up and move it around. It's in a case, it is carryable without any super strength or anything like that. I'm doing this just as I am. So let's put that down there. I'm going to bring my menu up in the top left corner so you can see what we're doing. So you can see we've got some options there to unfold the survey and calibrate. Obviously pick up the object. We're going to press B and it's going to go through and animate the opening and unfolding of all of this. And there we go, there is our survey tool. Quite a common tool you would see on a construction site, particularly when you're working on land leveling and things like that. So if I'm going to give a very basic summary of exactly how this works, my best comparison would be the slope tool in the landscaping options. So I'll just quickly show you that. So if you're familiar with this, under landscaping there is an option there to create a slope. And basically, if we just come over the side here, you basically set a slope target point. So I want a slope from up to that point there, up on the right, and then you basically click where you want it to start, and you can drag your paintbrush up to that point and it will basically build a slope there. So it's kind of a cool way to build roads and ramps and things like that and get a nice gentle smooth gradient. Well, basically the surveyor tool does exactly that. It basically sets an A point and a B point, or a start and finish point, or a slope point, whatever you want to call it, and then you can use your tools, dozers, wheel loaders, trucks, whatever it is you want to use, to basically level it out and create that slope. So I'll go in and show you exactly how it works, but while this is the fast way to do it, it's not anywhere near as much fun as it is using the survey tool. So the first example I am going to give you is basically to create a pretty much flat building platform. Let's imagine we wanted to level out a little bit of the side of this hill to build a shed. Obviously you can get the shed to do that when you place it, but again, we're doing this for the realism. So we're going to go and stand here next to our tool. We've got that option there of R to calibrate. So press our R key, and this brings up a menu here across the bottom, which is where we go through and basically set our A and B point. So if we click on calibrate, you can see we've got our starting point there underneath the survey tool, and then we can drag this around basically to anywhere. I don't even know how far it goes. I haven't explored that far, but basically if you want to drag it around and try and set a point, you can do that. So I'm just going to click over here. This is where I kind of wanted to level out to. Oops, don't press escape, do that again. And instead of pressing escape, we're going to hit apply. And that's going to tell me that we've actually got a negative angle of 0.51 degrees from point A to point B. So it's on a slight down slope. Now I'm just going to go in here and try and edit this. Make that 0 and confirm, and we're going to go through and now set that level there. We didn't see much movement, but I do believe that should now have given us a pretty flat and smooth point to go from A to B, and that will be what will be created. Of course, with these offsets you can go through and provide a bit more. So if we wanted to do, say, let's do a 300mm or about a foot offset, from both our start and our target location. We're going to confirm that, and then we're going to set the level there. Has that increased those? I think it has, so now it's given us these little white lines underneath the targets. So if we go back and make this 1 to 0, you can see that's moved down. So I'm just going to go back and make that 0.3 and confirm there. So now we should have what I'm hoping is going to be a relatively level, or a perfectly level. It looks like this one's slightly higher out of the ground, which would make sense because previously we had a negative slope, so we were sloping down to that. And that is going to be our point A and point B. And the tools will now use that as a leveling option. Now, there is an option here to turn off use terrain. I've had a little bit of a play around with that, and instead of using terrain to snap to and being able to draw anyone, it actually snaps to your vehicles. So if you had a let's say we had the blade parked up over here and this was our end point, we could actually go from here to the blade and it would snap to that and it would use that rather than the terrain. We can also go down and customize it and name it. Whoops, just get out of there. Make sure you're not scrolling when you do it. If we go in there, we can go through and call this shed pad or whatever you want to call it, which is kind of important because you'll see that in just a second. But there we go. That should be everything all set and all leveled. So now we're going to go and jump into the John Deere, get the blade activated, and we're going to do a little bit of leveling. So with that all done, we don't actually need to leave the survey tool there. We can move that out of the way so we don't damage it. It is a $4,500 piece of equipment. I'm sure the foreman wouldn't be too happy if we went around breaking that all the time, but that's all out of the way. We do still have those level points. A and B have been set. So let's jump up here into the John Deere. We're going to use the Holaris blade there on the front. Imagine this is a bulldozer. So maybe one of FS Miner's bulldozers or a modded bulldozer or something like that. We could use the wheel loader, could use the excavator as well, but for this exercise we're going to go through and use the blade. So once we've jumped here into the tractor, we're going to go through and press Y and bring up our machine settings. And now you would have seen this menu that I didn't dwell on in the first video. Now we can go into here and we can actually go through. We've got an option now to calibrate the tool, which uses the survey tool we've just created. So if we go calibrate, you can see we've now got the option here, shed pad, which is the one we created before. And we're going to go through and go apply, and this will now use the shed pad as our level. There's a couple of other settings I'm just going to explain here and explain why they might be useful for using. There's an option here to allow grading up. Now that would be where we've got points like we showed over here in the back where our level actually needs to increase, and we want to be able to grade that up. So we're going to turn that on. Now there is a recommendation to turn off material input when active, so we're going to do that. We're going to go into this option back up here, and we're going to turn off enable material. That would basically mean there will be no stones being created as we go through and do this. There's a few ways you could tackle it. Because we're doing the blade, we're going to use it this way. You can have the materials being created, so if you were digging down or grading down and lowering a section, you might want to use enable materials. If you were using something like a truck and dumping, so something like the Volvo truck over there, that has a discharge node on the back of it. So if you came in and backed in with stones, you could actually build up the platform using that as well. Likewise with the wheel loader or anything, but we'll take a look at that in just a second. But for now, we're going to leave it there on that setting. And come here and press our comma key. We're going to cycle through Terrafarm Paint, Terrafarm Grade, Smooth, Paint. So we've only got the three options there, but we're of course going to be using the grade. We're set up to paint dirt at the moment, which is just fine. Doesn't really matter to me exactly what we're going to go through and paint. So let's come through here. Probably would have been a better example to have done a negative offset and actually been digging down, but we're going to go through and basically just look like we're grading up. So lower this down. We haven't turned our Terrafarm on yet. We're going to press O. Let's just start going forward, and you can start to see things are starting to adjust there. We've got a little circle, we've got a level. We are actually digging this down. Now we're going to go across our hole there. That's slowly going to start getting built up as we do go across that. Our wheels, I'm not sure whether that's a visual glitch. It must be a visual glitch, and because of the blade. So let's just back that up there and do that. Now one thing I'm not quite sure on, just looking at this now, I do wonder whether the offset that we had applied was just a visual offset to offset the target, not actually change what it is we were trying to do and what we were trying to achieve. So just something there that you might want to have a little bit of a play around with. Of course I am basically learning this on the go, just like you are as well. So if I'm not quite doing something right, please do drop a comment down. If you figured out a different way to do it or a way to use things a little bit better or differently, please do let me know. I'm always keen to learn as well. But there you go, you can see the way that this is basically leveling it out to a flat level, following along with the height of the little survey tool that we had set up there. There seems to be no radius or range on this, so we can sort of head on out and go out in whatever direction. Basically create this level platform. Now the one thing you're probably saying from a realism point of view, you wouldn't be able to grade something and make it higher, so there is a little bit of that aspect into it, which is where I was saying about using stones and being able to dump them out of the truck. So I might just go and do that. We're going to go and throw some stones in the back of the truck, and I'll demonstrate how that would work as well for leveling. So it's only a small capacity truck, 5,400 litres. In fact, the bucket on the wheel loader is just as big as that. But if we come through here and go to our surveyor tool, we've got once again the option here to steal the shed pad or use the shed pad as our grading option. We go through and have a look at some of our options. We're going to allow grading up, and we're also going to go through and turn off enable materials for that one. We'll enable discharge, yes, and everything else there should be all good. Just to actually make it a little bit clearer what we're doing here with this one, I'm just going to use a slightly different texture. Just so we can see. Maybe we'll pretend that this is sand, go sand, gravel, wet. That's probably a good one to be able to see. So we should see when we discharge is that sand, gravel, wet. So at the moment we've got option up in the right corner there, discharge. Cycle through with our comma for what our discharge is going to be. No, that's our minus key. There we go. We want to go through and grade, and there you go. We can see our grade there is now showing up. And if we go through and turn that on, if I was to dump now, we'd just dump the rocks onto the ground. But if we bring that up there, and now we go through and use our unload here, which is Control I. Let's tip that out, and what we should see, all going to plan, there you go, you start to see that getting raised up to the flat level that we had created, and it's used that sand texture, that wet sand gravel texture that we had specified. So there you go, you can quite clearly see exactly what it is we were dumping out, and it's filled up the hole, partly filled it up. So that's one way you could actually fill a hole using the level tool. Imagine you had a rock quarry somewhere else and you had a big hole you wanted to fill. You could bring your truck in and dump it out and use it to raise. So yeah, quite a cool little feature. This is the only truck that I'm aware of at the moment, at least, configured for doing that. And obviously, as I said, a very small capacity, but I expect we will see more come through very, very soon. Now, just to demonstrate as well what would happen if you were just cutting down the pad. Obviously we've raised it up and we haven't discharged anything. I'm going to demonstrate now if we turn our discharge options back on. So we've gone through, we've recalibrated this. Our start and offsets is 0 and 0. You can see we can't actually see our line. If we zoom in, we can just make it out a little bit there, and then going over this so you can see where it goes under the ground. That should be 300 mils. That should be the 0.3 that we raised the pad by. So let's jump into the John Deere again. We're still set up to use our shed pad as our level, but we're just going to go back into our machine settings under Y. We're going to enable material on. We're also going to go through and turn off allow grading up, just to make sure we save that, and our material is going to be stone. So what we should see now is that our materials, as we go through and level, should drop some stones onto the ground, which is signifying us grading that area off. Obviously we're limited by what fill types there is, so there's obviously no dirt, which would be the most appropriate one to be doing what we're doing, because we've just put dirt. But let's just lower this down. Let me get that there. I thought there was a way we can tilt this on an angle. No, there's not. It's a straight one only. So let's go through and press O, turn that on. Now as we start going forward, hopefully what we're going to see is we're going to start creating some stones. And there we go, you can start to see them building up. So we're lowering the pad down, you can see the white line is starting to appear, and we're getting a stone discharge coming through there as well. So again, signifying that there is a material coming through as you go and to create the lowering of the site. So very cool way to do that. This is a very difficult way to do it. I've found that the tractor isn't actually powerful enough to push too much stone forward, but when we were testing it out with a bulldozer from FS Miner the other day, it worked out quite well. But for today, for these videos, I am basically trying to stay as much as possible with a default equipment. But yeah, there you go, that has lowered that down, only to part of it, not the whole way across. As you can see, we've still got that higher level piece up there, particularly where we dump the stones into the hole, which shows up still, and even there on the edge you can sort of see the different levels. So where we built up on the outside, we built up on that side, and now we've cut that down to a lower level. So really cool way if you wanted to build a shed pad or start doing some landscaping, you could do that. One last thing I am going to show is how it works when you're going up the side of a hill, because that was our initial demo there with the landscaping tool. Let's see how this one works. So once again, let's jump in here and calibrate. Now I'm going to try something before we go too far. I'm going to actually go through and change this and go to call this track 1. I'm going to go through now and we're going to go calibrate, and hopefully this is going to give us 2 options in the survey tool. I'm not sure. Looks like we've still got one there, which should be our first one. Now we're going to go all the way up here, and basically what I wanted to try and get is an area where we might end up cutting as well as digging down a little bit. So I'm going to set that there and hit apply, and you're now going to see we've got a gradient of 8.2 degrees sloping up from point A to point B, and that is what we're going to try and grade out. Now we've got some areas which need to be raised and some areas which need to be leveled, so we'll just be mindful of that. We've got the grading turned off still there on the tractor, so hopefully that's not going to go through and do that. So let's jump into the John Deere and go and see what happens. So it looks like we've just overwritten our course there. We've still got track 1, but we've lost the one we had previously, so not sure if you can keep them or not. That may not be a feature at the moment, but let's go and have a look. We'll turn this on and we're going to lower the blade down. We've got obviously some areas here where we're going to be raising it and some areas where we're going to be cutting down. So it does look, just because of that setting I had about the raise and lower, as you can see we're not actually achieving anything at the moment, but what we should see is if we get up to a spot up here where the line disappears, we are actually going to get to do some grading, I'm hoping. There we go. So this is a spot where the ground actually just needed to be lowered a touch rather than raised up. And you can actually carry on going and it will just keep on following that gradient. So as you can see, we're going to be doing that. And that is our set gradient. So it will work going that way. But once again, if we wanted to raise this ground, there's two ways to do it. One would be to set our blade to raise ground as we had it earlier. Again, let's just have a quick look at that. So allow grading up, turn that on, go back into our materials, disable material because we don't want a whole lot of stones created as we grade up. Everything's still turned on, and there you go. Now you can see as we get up onto that level, we're going to start doing some grading. Haven't quite got that set perfectly at the moment, but it is starting to build that up. In fact, I want to try and get, I think it might have been because we went on a level there with the tractor to start with, made it a little bit awkward. Let's go down and see if we can start that again. There we go. It is working. It is working as we go up here. So it might be something you need to do over 2 or 3 or 4 passes to get it to build up. It might be just the fact that we're having to build up too much in there. But obviously the other way is, let's back out of here. And this is the way we did it actually on a live stream earlier. We were in the excavator digging a hole and filling up with it next door. So let's jump into the excavator and I'll demonstrate that. So in the excavator, you can see on the right hand side we've got our Terrafarm to lower, so we're going to dig a hole, we've got our discharge to grade, we've calibrated our surveyor to the track 1, we've got stones going in and dirt as our output. So we get this turned on, and bear with me as I do this with a controller rather than with my joysticks, just because of how things are set up at the moment, but just get this lowered down. You should see that we're going to be able to dig a little bit of a hole. There we go, got some stones in there, swing around, and what we should see now, because of that discharge, is when we tip the bucket out, we're going to get a raised area of ground. Just try and do it as close to the survey, and there we go. That's going to build that up basically to level, so we can go through and basically dig as many holes as you like, trying to use the material that we've got basically to raise things up and build up as well. So it's kind of, you know, I think this is quite a realistic way to do it, is you're actually using material, you're using a tool to build this up. So there you go, you can see as we swing around across different areas, it will stop discharging if the area you're trying to fill is already at maximum fill level or maximum height, reach the survey height. And you get areas that aren't at survey height and it will dump out on them. There we go. So things are building up. So that is another way you can go through and do it. Once again, just adds to the realism of how Terrafarm works. You go up there and build your course up, basically, build your track up. Now one feature that talking to SDX, the creator of Terrafarm, is in the future would be to be able to go through and basically draw the survey point from A, B, C, and maybe even make a course that snakes up and around the road a little bit like Auto Drive could, or something like that, so maybe using a similar interface. But that is a long way down the track. For now, it is just going to stay here like this. So there we go, that is a bit of a crash course in the Surveyor tool. I've covered everything I know about it. There may be other features that you know, or there might be other ways it can be used as well. All I can suggest is you get in there, you experiment, you see what you can figure out and get it to work the way you want it to work. But again, a very cool way to sort of add some realism into it if you wanted to do your building do some construction, do some civil works, those kind of things. It's a very cool way to use Terrafarm and actually have a purpose to why you're digging those holes, why you're using those blades and all those kind of things. So yeah, very, very cool and very, very useful indeed. So as always, hope you found this video useful. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.